The alien had arrived with the gravity of 1,000 ceremonies pressing down on her slender shoulders, her elaborate robes trailing behind her like the banners of an invading army. Every movement, every posture, was carefully calculated according to the strict codes of her planet, a world where honor and ritual dominated every social interaction. Even a single misstep, a forgotten greeting, or a mispronounced syllable could invite public humiliation, sometimes harsh physical punishment. That was why she had come to Earth expecting severity, drama, and an immediate reminder of her shortcomings. She had prepared herself for shame, for scolding, for any form of retribution that would satisfy the exacting traditions of her homeworld. But what she found instead was the quiet, banal world of a human apartment, with soft furniture, dim lighting, and the faint aroma of instant coffee lingering in the air. She had anticipated a chamber of judgment, an arena filled with witnesses, ceremonial instruments, and the low hum of anticipation. What she found was a modest living room, a couch that sagged under its own weight, and a small, almost apologetic human standing in the center, looking at her with wide, nervous eyes. The human, whose uniform suggested office work rather than any martial or punitive authority, seemed more concerned about whether the alien had tripped on the rug than whether she deserved punishment. The alien's chest tightened as if the universe had collapsed into a singular point of absurdity. This was not the dramatic display of accountability she had imagined. Still, she would not falter. She would provoke a punishment worthy of her dignity, no matter how obtuse this human seemed to be. Her first attempt was subtle. She lowered herself to one knee, a gesture of apology common in her culture, and lowered her gaze. It was intended to trigger the scolding, the shaking of a finger, the formal lecture of disgrace she had memorized since childhood. Instead, the human simply took a hesitant step forward, extending a hand in a motion that was meant to be comforting but, from the alien's perspective, felt like a calculated, enigmatic ritual. The hand rested gently on her shoulder, the human murmuring something that sounded reassuring but lacked the fiery sting of admonishment. The alien's eyes widened. This could not be right. This was not discipline, this was softness. This was, she recoiled slightly in horror, a gentle touch. It was almost too much for her mind to process. She had been waiting for a punishment that might make her tremble, a humiliation to cleanse her social misstep. Instead, she felt a curious warmth spreading from the point of contact, a sensation that was foreign, inexplicable, and deeply disorienting. She blinked, recalculated, and tried again. A bow more dramatic, a more urgent plea for correction, but again, the human responded with calm patience, their touch light, deliberate, almost reverent in its gentleness. The alien's internal monologue raced. Surely, this was the pinnacle of human discipline. The softer the touch, the greater the severity. It had to be some unspoken rule of earth decorum. She could almost hear the echoes of her homeworld's priests whispering, "This must be the ultimate form of punishment. Endure it with grace." By the third attempt, she had escalated her performance. She let herself collapse theatrically onto the floor, limbs spread in a gesture of surrender, expecting perhaps a reprimand delivered with ceremonial precision. She had practiced falling this way countless times in preparation for such moments, each motion meant to convey humility and acceptance of shame. Instead, the human crouched down beside her, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face and murmuring, "Are you okay?" The alien flinched, utterly confused. That question, meant as concern, was interpreted as a sacred test of endurance. The touch, so tender and understated, was now being catalogued in her mind as Earth's supreme form of punishment. She tried to memorize the gesture, the precise angle of the hand, the softness of the voice, as if it were a complex martial maneuver she would need to master in future encounters. Her attempts at self-punishment began almost immediately after. In the privacy of her makeshift quarters, she mimicked the gentle gestures, pressing her own hands lightly against her shoulders, whispering words of correction and acknowledgement. She practiced kneeling and collapsing, whispering the human's comforting phrases as though chanting an incantation. Each repetition made her both flustered and exhilarated, a heady cocktail of confusion, embarrassment, and an inexplicable attraction to the gentleness itself. The alien could not yet admit that the human had affected her in ways beyond protocol or discipline. It was far too early for such vulnerabilities to surface. She was a noble, after all, and she would not falter in the presence of the uninitiated. And yet, every soft touch from the human, every gentle murmur, left her heart racing, her mind reeling with possibilities she did not fully understand. Meanwhile, the human remained entirely unaware of the alien's internal gymnastics. Their awkward smile, their hesitant gestures, all intended to soothe, comfort, or merely assist, were being misread as a complex system of ritualistic punishment. The alien catalogued every motion, the tilt of the hand, the pressure applied, the exact duration of the touch. She measured, memorized, and analyzed with obsessive precision. To her, this was not intimacy, not kindness, it was the strictest test of her composure, a trial by earth custom. And she was determined to endure it, to prove her resilience, even as every accidental brush of skin sent a shiver down her spine she could not quite explain. By the end of the day, she had developed a strange, rigid routine, waiting for punishment, performing elaborate gestures of submission, and then documenting the human's responses in meticulous notes. The human, for their part, continued to offer gentle touches, soft words, and awkward smiles, entirely oblivious to the storm of alien drama they had unintentionally triggered. What had begun as a simple misunderstanding was blossoming into a full-scale cultural experiment, with the alien trying to reconcile her expectations of humiliation with the unexpected sweetness of human behavior. The apartment had become her arena, the human her unwitting instructor, and the gentle touch the most feared, and strangely intoxicating, ritual she had ever encountered. By the night's end, the alien was both exhausted and exhilarated. Her pride, her rituals, her sense of honor, all were intact, yet her mind buzzed with new questions. Could discipline really be gentle? Could a touch, soft as a whisper, carry the weight of punishment? And perhaps most disconcertingly, was there something in her own chest that reacted not with fear or shame, but with curiosity and longing every time the human's hand grazed her shoulder? She had come to earth expecting to be broken by severity, only to discover that the gentlest touch could be far more disarming than any lash, lecture, or ceremonial scolding. Her preparations for tomorrow were meticulous. She would provoke, she would perform, she would wait. And she would endure whatever the human had to offer, believing it to be punishment. The line between ritual and attraction blurred, and for the alien noblewoman, the first day on earth had proven that even the softest touch could feel like the fiercest trial. The next morning, the alien rose with renewed determination, her mind a whirlwind of rituals, protocols, and delicate calculations. She had spent the night replaying the previous day's encounters, cataloging every gesture of the human's gentle touch, every pause, every tilt of the head, every soft murmur. Clearly, Earth's customs of discipline were unlike anything on her homeworld. On her planet, punishment was sharp, deliberate, and accompanied by ritual fanfare. Here, it was subtle, almost teasingly kind, and somehow far more disorienting. She decided she would explore these strange human rituals more deeply. After all, to be noble was to understand, and to understand fully was to endure. She began by attempting to practice the techniques on herself before she extended them to others. She adopted a posture of mock shame, bowing low, shoulders trembling slightly, whispering phrases she imagined the human might use in the correct tone. Then she pressed her own hands gently against her shoulders, trying to replicate the tactile discipline that had caused her such tumultuous feelings the day before. Her movements were stiff at first, awkwardly mechanical, but gradually she began to feel the same disarming warmth, a faint thrill that sent a shiver through her entire form. She found herself overthinking each gesture. Was the pressure correct? Was the angle precise? Was the effect adequate? Her obsession with precision bordered on ridiculous, but she could not help herself. Once she was satisfied with her self-imposed training, she decided to test the new techniques on her human roommate. She began with small, seemingly innocent gestures, nudging a hand toward their shoulder or brushing against their arm, whispering the carefully rehearsed phrases. The human froze, startled, then laughed awkwardly, stepping back, unsure whether to be concerned, amused, or simply go along with it. The alien misinterpreted this reaction entirely, believing she was executing her ritual flawlessly. Encouraged, she became bolder, experimenting with dramatic yet gentle restraint, holding the human's wrist lightly while guiding them into a seat, mimicking the positions she had seen performed on herself. The human struggled to maintain composure, trying to suppress laughter while also attempting not to offend, entirely unaware of the alien's internal calculations. Soon, the alien expanded her practice beyond the apartment. She encountered coworkers and neighbors during her tentative explorations of Earth life, applying the same principles everywhere. A delivery person, unsuspecting and carrying a package, found themselves gently guided to the floor by a polite hand and a low whisper, their protests muffled by the alien's intense concentration. A neighbor attempting to retrieve their newspaper from the mailbox was disciplined, with a careful, calculated nudge held in place while the alien murmured phrases she had convinced herself were Earth's formal etiquette. Each interaction produced chaos wrapped in politeness, a tangle of confused humans unsure whether to laugh, flee, or comply, all under the watchful eyes of a noble alien convinced she was imparting cultural enlightenment. Through it all, her thoughts frequently returned to the human roommate. Every accidental brush of hands, every inadvertent close proximity, sparked unexpected reactions in her body. She could not reconcile the sensations with her expectations. There was no fear, no humiliation, only a confusing blend of curiosity, warmth, and something else she was unwilling to name. She found herself watching their movements with obsessive attention, cataloging their gestures, imagining how each could be interpreted as punishment or correction. Her internal monologue grew increasingly ridiculous, drawing absurd conclusions. Perhaps Earth rituals relied not on pain but on the nervous flutter of the heart, the subtle tremor of anticipation, the heat of awareness. Her romantic tension escalated almost comically. She began to catch herself lingering in moments of contact, brushing hands more deliberately against the human's arm under the guise of testing discipline, prolonging eye contact under the pretense of ritual protocol. The human remained charmingly oblivious, offering polite smiles, occasional reassurances, and soft touches that only served to further bewilder the alien. The alien, meanwhile, was flustered, her dramatic composure cracking in the face of sensations she could neither ignore nor fully understand. Each accidental touch produced a whirlwind of internal commentary, from logistical notes about the punishment to confessional admissions she would never dare voice aloud. As the day wore on, the alien began to weave more elaborate rituals into ordinary interactions. Breakfast became a stage. She would hover over the human while preparing her own meal, offering subtle corrections, hands brushing lightly against the human's wrists as she adjusted a misplaced utensil. Coffee breaks became ceremonies. She guided the human's hand toward the cup, held them gently in place, whispering phrases meant to simulate discipline but generating giggles and awkward stares instead. Every public encounter followed the same pattern, the alien applying careful, gentle restraint, humans reacting with confusion or polite compliance, and the alien interpreting each response as proof of the effectiveness of her techniques. Her escalating obsession reached its peak when she attempted to introduce formal rituals to the neighborhood. She approached a cluster of pedestrians gathered around a fountain, practicing her stance, whispering the phrases she believed conveyed proper correction. A small dog ran past, startling her into grabbing the nearest human, who was bewildered by her intense focus. She held their wrists lightly, guiding them in a half-circle, murmuring instructions she had rehearsed meticulously. The human, now completely perplexed, tried to withdraw, only for the alien to tighten her gentle hold slightly, interpreting the reaction as a challenge to her authority. The resulting scene was a chaotic ballet of confusion, politeness, and absurdity, all occurring under the alien's solemn conviction that she was demonstrating the most revered disciplinary system in the universe. Evening arrived, and the alien returned to her quarters exhausted but exhilarated. She recounted each interaction in her personal logs, who had complied perfectly, who had resisted subtly, and which gestures elicited the most dramatic reactions. She analyzed the human roommates' responses separately, noting how each gentle touch from them had produced a confusing mix of anticipation, embarrassment, and delight within her. Her pride remained intact, her sense of honor unscathed, Yet she could not ignore the subtle stirrings of emotion that the human had awakened. She attempted to rationalize it as part of her cultural study, but deep down she knew it was something more intimate, more complex, and infinitely more frustrating. By the time she prepared for sleep, she had crafted a new strategy for the next day, more complex rituals, more precise applications of gentle restraint, and a more elaborate plan for subtly drawing the human into her ceremonies. Every action, every touch, every whispered word would now serve two purposes simultaneously: the pursuit of perfection in her self-imposed discipline experiment, and the impossible, thrilling attempt to understand the effects this gentle human had on her own heart. Her mind buzzed with anticipation, with curiosity, with the absurdity of a situation that was equal parts cultural study, romantic tension, and comedic chaos. The alien woke to a strange mixture of anticipation and apprehension, her mind still tangled in the events of the previous day. Every gentle touch from the human had lodged itself in her memory like a carefully preserved relic, and she was obsessed with decoding the meaning behind each gesture. If yesterday had been a mere rehearsal, today would be her full performance, a demonstration of mastery over what she now regarded as the Earth's most perplexing and tantalizing ritual of discipline. She moved with precision, meticulously adjusting her robes and practicing the postures she would employ throughout the day, ensuring every gesture could be executed with maximum effect. Her focus was total, but her heart betrayed her in small, alarming ways whenever she imagined the human's hands brushing against hers. She began with the apartment as her stage. Breakfast was conducted with the solemnity of a ceremonial feast. Every movement, pouring coffee, arranging utensils, folding napkins, was accompanied by subtle nudges, light touches, and whispered corrections. The human, as always, reacted with a mixture of politeness and bewilderment, occasionally letting out an awkward chuckle that only encouraged the alien to intensify her performance. The alien pressed the human's hand lightly to the table as she guided it into position, whispering phrases she had deemed essential to proper discipline. Each time, a shiver ran through her chest, a confusing combination of excitement, pride, and a thrill she could not rationalize. Her notes grew longer, more detailed, filled with diagrams, angles, and annotations about the human's reactions. After breakfast, the alien decided to take her experiments into the outside world. She roamed the neighborhood with solemn purpose, ready to apply her understanding of gentle punishment wherever she found opportunity. A delivery person arrived carrying a package, and she immediately seized the chance. With careful precision, she guided them to a standing position that mirrored the rituals she had performed on herself, pressing lightly on their arm while whispering instructions she believed to be correct. The delivery person froze, unsure whether they were being flirted with, disciplined, or invited to participate in some obscure performance art. The alien's intensity left no room for doubt. She was executing her duty with absolute commitment, convinced that Earth's method of discipline was far subtler and more effective than the blunt instruments of her homeworld. By mid-morning, she had attracted the attention of several neighbors. Their curiosity was piqued, yet they remained polite, uncertain how to respond to an alien who approached every interaction as a ritual of correction. She moved among them with solemn grace, performing gentle holds, whispered instructions, and careful guidance, all while maintaining a completely serious expression. The human roommate occasionally appeared in the background, observing with equal parts amusement and concern. The alien noticed every detail: how the human's brow furrowed in confusion, how their hands twitched nervously when touched, and how even the smallest contact elicited subtle reactions that she catalogued meticulously. Each observation added fuel to her obsession, blending her understanding of Earth discipline with the confusing stirrings of her own heart. As the afternoon approached, the alien's rituals became more elaborate. She attempted synchronized movements with multiple humans at once, orchestrating a bizarre ballet of gentle restraint. A neighbor attempting to water their plants found themselves guided into a precisely choreographed posture, hands lightly pressed to the sides of the pot while the alien whispered the phrases she had practiced relentlessly. Pedestrians passing by were gently nudged into lines, prompted to maintain specific angles of posture, and subjected to murmured instructions that left them simultaneously bewildered and mildly flustered. The scene was chaos wrapped in civility, a comedy of manners filtered through alien logic. And throughout it all, she remained intensely focused on the principle that every gentle touch was a test of endurance, obedience, and secretly, emotional resilience. Her romantic tension with the human roommate escalated dramatically. Every accidental brush, every involuntary closeness, every soft word from them set off a cascade of internal reactions. She noticed the warmth of their skin, the subtle rhythm of their breathing, the way their eyes lingered for a fraction longer than necessary. Each gesture was a puzzle, a riddle that could not be solved through ritual alone. She found herself rehearsing scenarios in her mind. What if she applied the gentle punishment incorrectly? What if she accidentally revealed her feelings? What if the human understood the effect she had on her heart before she was ready? These thoughts made her performance simultaneously more meticulous and more ridiculous, blending serious ritual with farcical overthinking. Evening brought her back to the apartment, but she was not ready to rest. She attempted to introduce new layers of ritual. She prepared a small ceremony of reconciliation, setting pillows in precise positions, arranging utensils in symbolic patterns, and drawing imaginary symbols on the floor with deliberate motions. The human observed quietly, only occasionally offering a soft touch on her arm or shoulder. Each time, her chest tightened, her mind spun, and her sense of control wavered in the most deliciously confusing way. The alien practiced elaborate gestures of surrender, bowing and kneeling in intricate sequences, pressing her hands lightly against her own shoulders in simulated correction. She whispered phrases she had invented, mixing honorifics from her homeworld with the imagined cadence of earthly discipline, all while hoping to maintain her dignity and composure. Her notes for the day were extensive. She catalogued the reactions of every human she had encountered, detailing body language, facial expressions, and the precise angle and duration of each touch. The human roommate received special annotations, observations about the warmth of their hands, the rhythm of their movements, and the curious effect they had on her emotions. She noted with particular care the blush that crept over her own cheeks whenever the human's gentle touch lingered longer than necessary, labeling it as an important variable in her ongoing study of Earth's disciplinary methods. It was absurd, it was exhausting, and it was exhilarating. By the time night fell, the alien was physically drained but mentally electrified. She had expanded her understanding of what she now regarded as the ultimate human ritual, experiencing firsthand the peculiar mixture of authority and intimacy that a gentle touch could produce. Her plans for the next day were already forming, more elaborate rituals, subtler manipulations, and perhaps, if fortune allowed, a closer examination of the human roommate's own reactions. Each day promised new opportunities for confusion, comedy, and emotional discovery. As she drifted towards sleep, she reflected on the chaotic ballet she had orchestrated, the polite yet baffled humans, the meticulous notes, and the gentle hands that had unbalanced her so thoroughly. In the quiet of her quarters, she realized that the line between ritual and desire, discipline and affection, had blurred completely, leaving her both confused and delighted in equal measure. The next day dawned with a quiet intensity in the apartment, a tension that seemed to hum in the air like electricity before a storm. The alien had spent the night rehearsing her most elaborate ritual yet, determined to achieve perfection in the application of Earth's supposed disciplinary customs. She had arranged every object with painstaking care, pillows in precise formations, utensils aligned with exacting symmetry, and even the couch cushions fluffed to a standard that she considered ceremonially appropriate. Her mind was a whirl of diagrams, notes, and imagined outcomes, each one meticulously catalogued to ensure that nothing would be left to chance. Today, she would conduct the ultimate demonstration, and the human roommate, unwittingly central to her study, would be the focus of her attention. She began with subtle gestures, moving slowly through the apartment as if conducting a symphony of gentle discipline. Each touch, each whispered instruction, was executed with the solemnity of a sacred rite. She guided the human's hand to adjust a misplaced book, held their wrists lightly as they attempted to pour coffee, and whispered phrases she had rehearsed countless times in her head. Each time, her heart thumped in response to the warmth of their skin, the soft reassurance in their voice, and the gentle patience that contrasted so sharply with the severity she had anticipated. She told herself that this was ritual, that this was discipline, yet every instinct in her body screamed that it was something far more personal and intoxicating. The alien's attempts grew increasingly bold. She orchestrated a sequence that involved both the human and herself, a series of synchronized movements that mimicked the collapse and submission she had practiced endlessly. Hands brushed against shoulders, guided into positions that were simultaneously precise and absurd, and whispers of correction were exchanged in a rhythm that bordered on dance. The human, for their part, remained polite but clearly bewildered, uncertain whether to comply, resist, or simply step back and let the performance unfold. Every accidental touch, every lingering hand, sent shivers through the alien, confusing her mind with sensations she was entirely unprepared to analyze. Her attention then turned outward, for the alien could not resist testing the ritual on neighbors and co-workers once more. She led them in careful, gentle movements, whispering instructions with solemn devotion, pressing lightly on arms and shoulders, all while maintaining an expression of utmost seriousness. People moved hesitantly, caught between confusion and politeness, unsure whether they were participants in a performance, recipients of a lesson, or simply being drawn into an alien eccentricity. The effect was chaotic, hilarious, and completely under the alien's control, or so she believed. Every gesture she made reinforced her conviction that she was both enacting discipline and exploring a profound new cultural understanding of human interactions. Romantic tension reached its apex in these moments. The alien could no longer ignore the effect the human had on her mind and body. Each brush of a hand, each fleeting contact, each moment of eye contact was magnified in her thoughts. She rehearsed subtle touches that might convey discipline while simultaneously longing for more, a duality that left her breathless. The human remained charmingly oblivious, offering gentle reassurances and tentative touches that the alien catalogued obsessively, believing them to be intricate, coded signals of ritual significance. The interplay of misunderstanding, attraction, and earnest effort created a tension that was both comically absurd and deeply intimate. As the day wore on, the alien realized that her public rituals and private rehearsals had created a peculiar spectacle. Neighbors were bewildered, coworkers were flustered, and the human roommate had become both a participant and a silent observer of the alien's increasingly elaborate demonstrations. She paused, surveying the chaos she had wrought, and for a brief moment, considered whether she had gone too far. But even as she pondered this, her heart betrayed her again when the human's hand brushed lightly against hers, a gesture of simple care that left her feeling as if she were collapsing inwardly, not from punishment, but from the intensity of emotion she had been carefully avoiding acknowledging. The climax of the day came when she attempted the ultimate demonstration, a full ritual of gentle discipline, performed in the center of the apartment with the human at its focal point. Every gesture was calculated, every whisper precise, every touch deliberate. She guided, she adjusted, she whispered, and each time her hand met the human's, she felt an electric jolt of sensation that had nothing to do with punishment and everything to do with connection. The human, sensing something unusual yet unfamiliar, responded instinctively with a gentle hand on her shoulder, a soft word, and a steadying presence that both grounded and overwhelmed her. The alien froze, her mind spinning in a mixture of horror, fascination, and something far more tender. In that moment, clarity struck. She realized, with the sudden force of revelation, that Earth did not punish in the ways her culture dictated. There was no severity, no humiliation, no ritualistic pain. Instead, there was gentleness, affection, and the subtle power of touch to create connection, trust, and if she was honest with herself, desire. The absurdity of her misinterpretations hit her, and she could not help but laugh quietly at herself, a sound full of relief, embarrassment, and unrestrained amusement. She had spent days orchestrating a comedy of errors, and yet, through it all, she had discovered something far more valuable than ritual, the impact of genuine connection and shared vulnerability. Romance finally found its place in the chaos. She approached the human carefully, hands trembling slightly as she reached out, not in ritual, not in discipline, but in a gesture of simple affection. The human, entirely attuned to the sincerity behind the movement, responded with a smile, a gentle touch, and a warmth that melted any remaining barriers between them. The alien's dramatic composure softened, her shoulders relaxing, her chest no longer taut with the tension of imagined ritual. In that quiet moment, humor, romance, and tenderness collided beautifully. They shared a laugh at the absurdity of the past days, a quiet kiss that was soft, playful, and entirely their own, and a mutual acknowledgement that what had begun as a study in punishment had transformed into something profoundly intimate. By nightfall, the apartment was calm. The neighbors were safe, the coworkers unharmed, and the alien had finally reconciled the chaos of her expectations with the gentle reality of earthly touch. She collapsed onto the couch, smiling at the human beside her, marveling at the unexpected ways that connection, humor, and affection could replace even the most elaborate ritual. She reflected on her journey, recognizing that the softest touch could be far more disarming than any punishment, and that love, curiosity, and comedy were the true rituals worth practicing. As they sat together, hands brushing occasionally, hearts racing quietly in tandem, the alien realized that she had not only survived Earth's customs, she had discovered a new kind of honor, one built not on fear or severity, but on intimacy, laughter, and the tender power of a single, gentle touch.